How strong is Shadow? No, not the Shadow from Sonic the Hedgehog, but Shadow, the main character from the Eminence in Shadow. Now, as those of you who have seen the community post I posted a couple of days ago, you would know that this was going to be the video I recorded next. But for those who haven't, like I said, I'm going to be seeing the main character of the Eminence in Shadow. And as you guys might think, you're like, oh, he's just your typical average isekai main character. He's just going to be super overpowered. He wants to be the hero of everything. And while you're technically right about him being super overpowered, you're wrong about him wanting to be the hero. You see, Shadow isn't your typical average isekai main character. Instead of wanting to be the hero of the story, he instead wants to be the best background character or side character that there is. That's right, he doesn't want to be in the spotlight or anything. He wants to be the guy that's in the shadow, but is also extremely powerful. So he has no interest in being the main character, which I find to be a pretty interesting character to me. And also probably why I like the verse a lot, because I think he's pretty cool. But with that being said, today I'll be sharing the main character of Eminence and Shadow. So before I get into his scaling, I want to go over a couple of things. For starters, I will be using 3 different source materials. I will be using the Eminence and Shadow anime, the light novel, and the manga for his scaling. And you also might hear me refer to him as Shadow, or Sid Cognito, or maybe a couple other characters. But if you do, just know I'm still talking about the same guy. He just kind of goes under a couple different names sometimes, depending on the placement in the verse. But with that being said, without taking up any more time, let's jump straight into his scaling. So for starters, after Shadow got reincarnated from, our average world, he got reincarnated into a world with magic. It is here with this magic that he was born into a family of knights with his sister Claire. And his sister Claire, even while they were pretty young, was capable of cutting up a boulder, which got all the way up to a small building level. Now Shadow's obviously stronger than his sister, even at an extremely young age, because at a young age we see him just casually taking on a group of bandits who are killing a bunch of people, stealing a bunch of loot, and Shadow just effortlessly solves them with little to no trouble at all. This is even shown in the manga towards the later ends of the series, where in a flashback, Shadow and Claire got cornered by a group of kidnappers, and after Claire basically passed out, Shadow just dealt with them single-handedly. Speaking of when he's a kid, even as a kid, Shadow's power is so great that he's even capable of shaking the entire atmosphere. While there are no direct calculations for shaking the atmosphere, I'm just going to assume it's about roughly the same as it would to shake the entire Earth, so we can just roughly assume it's around large country to multi-continental, even when he's a kid. Then of course, for those of you who have watched the anime or heard of the famous clip, I Am Atomic, Shadow's favorite move and his most devastating is one that is on the level of a nuclear bomb. It's said over and over again that Shadow possesses the power of a nuclear bomb, but has even surpassed one. And when he uses it for the first time in the series, he's capable of generating an explosion so big, it's capable of getting small city to even mountain levels of power. But it's even noted in the novel that Shadow was capable of shaking the entire Earth in the process of this attack. So his previous statement of being able to shake the entire atmosphere with his power should be pretty consistent. And when Shadow uses I Am Atomic, he was even capable of killing Zenon, who's stronger than Iris, who is noted to be the strongest knight in the entire kingdom of Midgard. So Shadow being able to completely obliterate Zenon is actually pretty impressive. It should also be noted that whenever he uses the I Am Atomic move, it seems to buff his durability and power at least 10 times over, as he went from being able to effortlessly harm Zenon while playing around with him, to then completely having a short stature just upon touching him. Then after Shadow's fight with Zenon and just completely devastating part of the Midgard kingdom for absolutely no reason, he then goes on to fight Aurora, the strongest witch in all of history during the goddess trial. Now, what's impressive about Aurora is that she's actually stated to be the strongest witch in history ever recorded, that she even has enough power to be capable of destroying the world. And Shadow is even capable of fighting her and even killing her in a fight. Though, to be fair, she was weakened to a pretty massive extent, but I don't think this should really downplay any of her statements. Then, of course, after this, and when Shadow was trying to leave the Holy Land area, Shadow even calls himself an omnipotent being. Isn't really all that inconsistent, as you'll see later on in the video, but him being omnipotent seems to be pretty accurate within the series itself. Then, of course, after all this, Shadow then gets pulled into the Sanctuary, which is an infinite-sized place filled with memories. And it also doesn't contain the concepts of up or down. Even in this Sanctuary, Shadow is capable of using another I Am Atomic move called the All-Range Atomic, which is capable of destroying the entire sanctuary and killing multiple Oliviers. What's impressive about this is that not only did it destroy the entire sanctuary that is possibly even infinite in size, as I stated earlier, but even excluding those statements, it gets at least all the way up to country levels of power. And what's even crazier about this is that while he was doing this, Aurora even questioned how someone was even capable of being this strong, which I just find crazy. How are you so strong that people have to literally question how you're even allowed to have such magical capabilities? Of course, after Shadow proceeds to obliterate yet another piece of land, Shadow then goes into a tournament undercover as a guy named Mundane Man. And as Mundane Man, Shadow is capable of obliterating every single opponent while massively holding back during this entire tournament. And when he goes to fight Princess Iris, as I said earlier, who's the strongest knight in the capital of Midgard, Shadow was just so incredibly strong that he was creating illusions of Iris' head being cut off, her legs being cut off, her arms being cut off. Quite literally every part of her body was being cut off in these illusions, which made her terrified. And it's because of these illusions that Iris even noted that Shadow was the strongest person in the entire world, with his power being so great that it seemed to be in a different dimension compared to everyone else on the planet. Then, of course, after he reveals his identity as Shadow, he's then capable of fighting against the Goddess of War, Beatrix, and Iris in a 2-versus-1 fight. And what I find really impressive about this fight is that they were moving so fast, they were quite literally teleporting around the place while destroying buildings, but that Shadow he's just so overpowered that he literally turned his weapons into crowbars and was beating Iris and Beatrix in a fight with just mere crowbars. Now tell me, have you ever seen someone be in a fight where they just completely obliterated someone with a pair of crowbars? I don't think you have, which I find to be crazy. And of course, during this fight, Shadow's power and skill was just so good that even the Goddess of War, Beatrix, even said that his skill level was at a place that no one would be capable of reaching. And after all of this, Shadow then decided to flex on Iris and Beatrix by showing his I Am Atomic, and said that it was capable of destroying the planet, it was a sky-rendering attack, and that it's the ultimate move. But of course, as the troll he is, Shadow just didn't do the move. He just decided to troll them and then just teleport away. And then after all of this and the events of Season 1, we move into Season 2, which is where the scaling is going to get even crazier. In Season 2, the first fight that we see Shadow get into is against a person named Queen Elizabeth. Now, Queen Elizabeth is incredibly strong, even being noted by Beta to be stronger than the strongest member, Shadow Garden, aka Alpha, who we will get into later on. And now, what's impressive about this is that it's even stated by Beta that Shadow is capable of one-shotting Queen Elizabeth. And this is even spectacularly shown in their fight, as right before Shadow was about to use his ultimate move, they were literally begging him not to kill Queen Elizabeth. But to their surprise, Shadow used another skill known as Recovery Atomic, which basically is a move that reverses everything that happened and was capable of healing everyone's wounds during that fight. And of course, after this, when he went undercover Shadow then went undercover as John Smith to do some money laundering, because of course he would. He just wanted some money because, for those of you who don't know, Shadow loves money more than anything in the world. Even while he's undercover, Alpha went to go fight him, and it's in this fight with Alpha that we actually get revealed something pretty important. Even though Alpha is the strongest member in Shadow's Shadow Garden team, Shadow is still effortlessly capable of taking down Alpha. And yes, even though he was bleeding, he was technically holding back to some extent, as he's obviously not going to kill his own members of his team. That'd just be idiotic of him. And even during this fight, it's even noted that Alpha was capable of overriding the concepts of space and was capable of bending the laws of physics, and yet Shadow was still able to overcome that, which I find pretty impressive. I'll also be coming back to this for more in the ability section later, but we'll go ahead and skip on later. Now, after this, then we get to the final fight in the end of Season 2, where Shadow fights against two important people, Ragnarok and Mordred. Now, what's important about them? Well, Ragnarok is said to be the strongest thing ever recorded, with it being the greatest treasure of all the dimensions, to which there are countless number of dimensions, and Ragnarok even rules over the 4th dimension. So I would say that Ragnarok is at least 4th dimensional by this point, but it's even noted how Shadow effortlessly took down Ragnarok like it was nothing. He completely obliterated him and was kicking him all over the city. Then after this, when Mordred decided to just absorb some of Ragnarok's power, Shadow even noted that Mordred was weaker than Delta, who is, in terms of raw power, the strongest member of the Shadow Garden. And of course, even after all of this, Shadow decided to become Gojo and literally became the Honored One, literally floating in space like he was Gojo, and decided to hit an I'm Atomic and nuke the entire solar system, which gets at least small star up to even star levels of power, which I find crazy. I don't know what it is with this man, but he just really likes to nuke everything. Speaking of all these countless dimensions, does Shadow even scale to these? Well, yes he does, and for two very important reasons. All the way back in the first time when he used the I Am Atomic move, Alexia even noted that Shadow's power was in the realm of the transcendental. And remember how I said he killed Mordred with an I Am Atomic move? Well, Mordred is stated to have a transcendental spell, which would obviously put it above the countless dimensions. So Shadow at this point is at least bare minimum 40 to probably multiversal plus, all the way up to at least 5D. Now, of course, after all of this is only the end of Season 2, so there's still some more things we have to go over. For example, some more things that happened was that after the events of Season 2, just by gathering magic in his right hand alone, Shadow was capable of making the entire air quiver, and he could shake the entire capital of Midgard. Epsilon, who is another member of Shadow Garden, even said that Shadow would be capable of cleaving the skies and part the seas of Earth. And of course, when Shadow went through a black hole and literally got teleported back to his original world, with the Atomic Slash, he was capable of generating at least large island levels of energy from cutting beasts, trees, and buildings perfectly. And of course, towards the end of the series, Shadow gets teleported into a pocket dimension, and it's here in this pocket dimension, which is very alike to the Sanctuary, as it's just a room full of memories, Shadow is capable of easily just brute forcing his way through it and destroying it. Now, before we head into all the ability sections and everything, there's one more thing I would like to mention about Shadow. Shadow is usually holding back in all of his fights, and it's pretty evident as his atomic move. I'm not even gonna call it I Am Atomic because he just has 50 different variations to it. Every time he says it, he says that playtime is over. So he's usually just holding back against his opponents every time he does it, which would be pretty consistent. I mean, look how he was playing around with Beatrix and Iris with a pair of crowbars. If you were to say that he wasn't holding back, I'd probably look at you pretty stupid. So, with all of Shadow's power being said, where exactly would he scale? Well, let's go over it. We know that Shadow is at least small city to mountain level from his first I Am Atomic in the series, but considering his statements of being able to shake the entire Earth and its atmosphere, I think it's pretty consistent that he's at least large country to multi-continental levels of power. This is also pretty consistent as with him destroying the Sanctuary, excluding the infinite inside statements, he got at least all the way up to country levels of power. But, of course, after all of that, remember his previous statement of being omnipotent? Yeah, I think that's pretty consistent. I mean, look at the thing he's done. He's nuked the solar system, he's quite literally traveled through a black hole, he's destroyed an infinite-sized space, so I think him being omnipotent and all-powerful makes a lot of sense, especially within just the inverse rankings of the series when he's just called the strongest multiple times over. And of course, at least then excluding all the large country and multi-continental levels of stuff, he should at least be planetary by default via his I Am Atomic being stated to be an earth-shattering move, as well as beating up Aurora, who's capable of destroying the entire world. Then of course you have the nuke in the solar system, which gets small star to star level. So that's all of the calculable feats. In terms of uncalculable feats, he should at least be up to high universal, since he can destroy an infinite space that doesn't have the concepts of up or down. But he's also capable of transcending the multiversal plus cosmology, so he should at least be 5D. And even if you don't believe in 5D, he's at least 4D, so he should scale to it, especially with Ragnarok being said to be the strongest thing ever recorded and being the greatest treasure of all of the countless dimensions. But with that being said, what are some of his abilities? Well, Shadow should at least have some existence erasure with his I Am Atomic moveset, considering it said multiple times that he'd be capable of erasing things like the snow, the Holy Land area, the battleground. He should said multiple times that he'd be capable of erasing stuff. Shadow is also shown to be capable of copying abilities a couple times. And of course, if Shadow was to ever hit his limits in a fight, if he's ever pushed to it, he's capable of pushing his body into overdrive to exceed those limits. It's also noted that Shadow is constantly getting stronger during his fights as he's constantly refining himself. He has transmutation and purification via being capable of transforming the members of Shadow Garden back from rotten piles of flesh back into their human forms. And Shadow probably has the most luck I've ever seen in a main character. This dude has gotten so lucky to the point where I don't even believe that this is just a regular power. For example, his luck is so great that he made up a random story about the cult of Diablos being evil, which turned out to be true. He was capable of randomly throwing a dart on a map, which landed exactly where his sister was being held captive, and an enemy conveniently ended up walking to the same exact location as Shadow when he got lost. Shadow's secret identity as John Smith was meant for him just to play around and make money, which ultimately ended up helping defeat his enemies and protect his allies of Shadow Garden. And when he ran away to the Orionic Kingdom, he conveniently ended up thwarting his enemies' plans. Like, this dude has some out-of-this-world luck that I've never seen before. He's also just so incredibly smart that he's capable of predicting his opponent's move off of sheer calculations. And he also seems to have Ultra Instinct. Yes, you heard me right, Ultra Instinct. In the verse, highly trained fighters are said to move through instinct, with people like Alexia being able to react without thinking, which became something that's just instinctively a part of her. People like Rose are also capable of reacting before thinking, and has sharpened instincts that tell her when it's the right time to attack an opponent. And Rex has also been shown to dodge attacks through pure instinct, and Shadow being stronger than all of them and way faster, he should also be just like this. You also have things in the verse like magic being capable of causing fear inside of an opponent, and with Shadow being so incredibly precise, he's capable of hitting pressure points. Magic can also allow for power nullification, as it can reduce damage taken from opponents on certain parts of the body. And Shadow is so great at stealth that he's said to be better than Epsilon, who's capable of concealing her entire presence, with Shadow being described as one with the air itself. And remember how I said earlier when he fought Alpha? Well, Alpha's capable of defining the concept of space and bends the law of physics, and all of her power comes from Shadow, so Shadow would just have all those abilities as well. Shadow's also capable of redirecting blood flow to his brain so he can live even in the event of his heart stopping from beating, and he's also capable of pulling organs to the other side of his body to avoid fatal blows. And he also seems like just getting stabbed on purpose so he can create counterattacks. Recovery Atomic, like I mentioned earlier, is capable of reversing everything that happens in a certain area, which is shown when he was capable of healing the wounds on his allies. And of course, anyone with magic is capable of hitting spirits and souls inside of the verse. So with that being said, this is all the scaling for the Eminence and Shadow up to this point. Of course, we're still waiting on a couple of things, like we're waiting on the movie to drop, like how we got the teaser a year ago, so we're still waiting on that. And we're also still waiting on Volume 7 in the series. So until we get those, this is all the scaling for Shadow so far in the verse. So I hope that all of you enjoyed this unique video on a main character I highly enjoy right now. And to all those who haven't watched the series, I highly recommend you all watch it. I think you all would enjoy it. With that being said, thank you for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one.